This week's question comes from Lee Caves. I have a couple of questions here for the coaches about the upcoming Silver Northern Traverse. I've completed 4 previous 100 miles in the past, and until last year, I finished these in a respectful time, but at a slow hobble for the last few miles. Last year, after starting slower at the South Downs Way 100, was the first time I've gone under 24 hours at 23 hours and 17 minutes, and still felt reasonably good at the end. Now for the big question. This year I've booked a Silver Northern Traverse. No, I'm not just following Eddie. It has been on my bucket list for many years, but until last year it felt out of reach. I obviously want to do the best time I can, but I have absolutely no idea how long it will take. I know I will need to run the first 100 miles slower than my South Downs Way, and the second half will be slow still, but how slow is slow? I felt I was running very easy for the first half last time. Will I really need to go slower still? Also, although I would hike all the ups, I normally still climb at a decent pace with slightly elevated heart rate. As there is a large proportion of the climbing and elevation gain in the first third of this race, how much effort should I put into the climbs and how cautious should I descend? I know these are impossible questions and completely athlete specific, but I really have no idea how to plan for this distance. I would like to think 2.5 to 3 days would be possible. I'm not planning structured sleep breaks and plan to wing it and see how it goes. So currently I'm thinking of aiming for a sub 3-day finish. PS, here are my previous stats for reference. Mercia Challenge 2019, 100 miles, 5,500 meters of elevation, just under 26 hours. Beacon Ways 2021, 100 miles, 6,000 meters of elevation at 29 hours. North Downs Way 2022, 100 miles, just over 3,000 meters of elevation, 26 hours and 15 minutes. South Downs Way in 2023, that's 100 miles, 3,800 meters, 23 hours and 27 minutes. Eddie, yeah, what do you think? You are going to be towing the line.
Yo, 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 Lee, you and me together. Okay, so one thing that will really help you with this is that everybody starting on that Northern Traverse line is covering 300 plus K distance. So the pace will you're not going to start and they're all running 100 miles and you go, well, what pace shall I do? Everybody is running that distance. So straight away, the whole pace of the race is very different because in a 100-miler, you probably found the first 10, 20 miles not frantic, but they are fast. People go off quite fast and you're thinking, should I be running really slowly? Oh, I've run up this little incline. Perhaps you will find in a race this distance, everybody will be so terrified of the distance. So naturally, and I think the first climb comes within about 300 meters of the course, everybody will start walking and the whole vibe is like, we're going to the finish. This is much more about an adventure than a race. And I think you need to look at it that way, Lee. Your 100-mile times and the way you've written that, they've all been like perhaps a little bit more time-centered. You want to do it in a certain time. You want to run them well. Yes, you want to do this Northern Traverse well, but I would take time out of the equation and totally go. And you need to do this in your training too. And it sounds like this is where you're feeling a bit lost on the feel. Totally needs to become about the feel of training. The way you train for a super long event like this is very different to the way you would train for a 100-miler as well, because there's so many other factors you have to take in account. And the biggest one is being outside for so long. And so it's very little about running fitness. It's much more about self-management, managing your effort, as you're already thinking about, which is great, managing your nutrition, managing your feet, managing your sleep, and managing the pain that's going to come probably quite early on, because the first third of this race, as you said, is hilly. So there is quite a lot that's going to have to go in the first third, and you might find your legs are like, gosh, my legs are quite sore already. And then just managing the pain and a new type of pain. When I first went out of hundreds into longer efforts, what I really noticed was in the hundreds, and again, you talked about this, at the end of 100, your legs are absolutely destroyed. And the pain of that last 10 miles is like, everything's blown and you're like, the brain power it's taking to keep running. You just don't have that so much in these long efforts. You can't have that because it's a 3-hour sort of max. You can be in that pain cave. this needs to be much more about the slow burn and the grit and determination. So I'd say one of the first things that you talk about is that you're really good at uphill hiking, but that you're really good at it because you put a bit of effort in. You've got to take all that effort away. This is not about effort. This is all just about sustainability. So it's all just about keeping going at a really slow pace. And the best way to know that pace, you shouldn't be sweating. You should be able to eat solid food. You should be able to talk to people. You should be able to hike up a hill and then really gently run down. It was a big thing as well. I had that question too, was like, how do you descend on these massive races? Because normally you'd use that as kind of free speed. But in races like this, as you sort of already know, you have to be really mindful of those descents and look after yourself. That's what these races are all about. It's a super exciting time. You kind of like, as you've written, you've kind of done your pre-education at those 100 milers. You've got that long run experience, and now you're going into this like new distance. There's so much to learn. Just take your time. There's no rush. This is almost like a whole different sport. So it's the 100-mile stuff that you've learned already. Use that, but you almost need to start a fresh book now on learnings. Spend as much time as you can on similar terrain. Don't worry too much about the running volume, Lee. Spend as much time outside. Hiking needs to become your new friend. Weighted hiking, cross training, just get used to really long days. And those are the best days. I love that. I love training for something like this. That training can become, grab some mates, grab your family and go for a day's hike. And that is your training with a bit of weighted hiking and pole action. Hope that's helped, Lee.
The key thing to big races is being able to maintain your effort level. And I always say to my athletes, you've got to trust yourself. You've got to learn how to trust yourself. And I would say I'd sense a little bit that you don't trust yourself from your question, because when you trust yourself, you know the effort that you can apply going up to that hill, going up the hill and going down. So I would say maybe spend a bit of time in your training just going at a pace where you feel comfortable and you feel good, and believe in that. Ultimately, once you get past 100 miles, you're going to have to sustain. It's just about sustaining pace. And generally, you can see a lot of the time in these long distance races, guys will go off quite quickly, but generally at around 150 miles, let's say it's a 200-mile race, they'll get caught up. They will start to flag off quite quickly. And it's just because you push too much and then your body just isn't able to provide any more going through. So I would say focus on a pace that you can sustain, and eat and do the things you need to do. Believe in your ability. You've got a huge stack of great races behind you. Like, there's no reason why you can't go into the Northern Traverse and do well and come out flying from it. You've got some brilliant races behind you. So, believe in yourself, back yourself. When you're going into how much effort should you be putting in? The effort that you can sustain and remain comfortable and still feel you can keep pushing in the race. So yeah, 100% trust yourself. The last thing I will say is in regards to breaks, it's probably worth having an idea of where you might want to sleep. So if you've done generally you can push out 100 miles because you've done it, and you do that without sleep. So it might be worth looking at the next point from that. Can you push out another 50 miles, for example, without sleep? So I'd have a think about that and have that in the back of your head as a potential plan B, plan C scenario. It's always worth thinking through the scenarios. Never try and wing it. That's the big difference, I think, between male and female ultra runners. Don't wing it. Have a plan B, C, D, E, whatever. But you'll definitely need a good sleep break in there. Top tip, there's lots of good stuff out there about how much sleep you need. 3 hours, I would say you're going a bit too much. Maybe look at around an hour and a half. That seems to be a lot of good stuff out at the moment in regards to supporting 90 minutes worth of sleep. Maybe have a look at that, see how it fits for you, if you've got any experience of that. Maybe try that in your training routine just to give you a feel of what that might look like for you. But best of luck. I think you're going to do great. So just get on with it and trust yourself.
Anything to add, Rebecca, from your experience?
I obviously don't have experience of doing this length of race, but I think I was certainly going to come in on the same point Trisha mentioned about the sleep. Again, other than the distance, that's the unknown quantity, is just the length of the race and the timing of sleep. And I would certainly have some sort of handle on when you're going to plan to do that, and just know yourself how that works. And it's a difficult thing to practice, just like you can't practice the full distance. But I think certainly knowing how you feel in those hours of darkness, how the effort feels going into second, third night, or whatever it might be. I'm not entirely sure the timing of when the race starts, but you'll be certainly running through a couple of nights where you'll need to, it'll take you into a different area to where you've been psychologically, fatigue from where you've been in 100 milers previously. So having some thought on that, not worry about it, but just have some thought of how that might then impact on you, how that impacts on your fueling through the night, that sort of thing. So that's just one of those elements which I think, I wouldn't wing it, but I wouldn't obsess about it, but I would have some sort of plan.
If you pace it right, and there's lots of things that can go wrong, obviously outside pacing it, but if you pace it right, it'll be like a tide. You might see everybody drift off at the beginning, but then if you just keep you cool, you'll see most of them towards the end. Yeah, fascinating. Best of luck.
Good luck, Lee. Keep us posted. See you on the start line.